Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Mindful Muscle Podcast, rocking my favorite app, Fitbot, today. Jody, how are you today?
I'm great, Gio. If you're new here, welcome. Gio and I are two friends who individually went on our own health and wellness journeys and collectively have lost and maintained a 140-pound weight loss. And we are here to show everybody that it's possible, it's doable, and you can do it sustainably, and we're worth it.
Amen for that. And I love the fact that you always mention that we have kept it off after all these years, because that's the key. Our next guest, Marilee, is an ultra runner, something Jody and I know nothing about. She's a running coach and our author of a new book called Just Run. Her running journey began in April of 2020, just like my fitness journey began during the lockdown of COVID-19. Since then, she's conquered thousands of miles, including 2 marathons and 2 ultra marathons. Need to find out exactly what that is. Originally, she's from Estonia. She now lives in the rural Lincolnshire, England. Merili runs to help maintain her mental well being, driven by a passion for pushing her own boundaries. Her goal is to empower others to discover and unlock their full potential. Marilee, welcome to the show. How are you today?
Hello, happy to be in the show. Thank you so much for inviting. I'm very good, thank you.
Amen for that. So, give me a little notion of what time is it now in England?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. Okay, for those
Whew.
of you who are listening, we record at 2 p.m. Central Time, 3 p.m. Eastern. So there's that little. So we thank you for being with us at this time.
Great. No problem at all.
Okay, so now Jody and I are not runners, although we do cardio. What is, people know what a marathon is, but what is an ultra marathon and what made you get into that?
Technically, everything above the marathon distance, which is 26.2 miles, is classed as an ultra. But in generally, ultra races start from 30 miles or 31 miles, and then everything above that, it's the next popular distance is 50 miles, and then there's everything between, and then it's 100 miles, and then there are those crazy distances that people run days, and it's quite insane. My accomplishments have been a bit more modest. I have done two 40 plus ultras. So can't say exactly 40 because the first one I went a bit wrong and I did nearly 42 miles, and the second one was just short of 41 miles.
Yeah, the longest on record I have ever run is 6 miles. So anything above that seems ultra to me. What made you get into running though?
When we were in lockdown in 2020, then the rules everywhere in the world were different, but here in UK you were allowed to go outside for 1 hour a day with your family to exercise. And I had nearly 3-year-old at the time at home, and we went for family walks, but he didn't really wanted to walk much, and because it was all very confusing for him. And I just felt that I need to do something for me, something for my health. I wasn't a runner, although I had run a little bit in years and years back, but it was more like let's sign up for the race with the colleagues, then do a few runs, do the race, somehow struggle through it, and then never run for until the next year. So that was my previous experience. So during the lockdown, I started small. I just started to run around in my little garden to start with, to build up a little bit. And then after a few weeks, I felt that maybe I could actually try running on the street. And I went for that first run. I was very slow, and it was hard. I always go very red from my face. I still do, although I have run over 4 years. And I thought that everybody are looking at me and judging me. And but somehow I did that run, and I came home and I felt better for it. And so I went for the another one, and it gave me that feeling of accomplishment, because running seemed something that I'm not capable of doing, because I was never a sporty child, and it just seemed quite impossible task. And then I was setting myself those small goals that I will run for 3 miles, then I will run for 5 miles, and then 6 miles. And when I accomplished them, they were slow, those runs, don't get me wrong, but I felt that accomplishment, that I have done that distance, and it felt good. And so somehow it got me hooked. But I think if you wouldn't had a lockdown, then it probably wouldn't happen, because it was, you were put into the situation that you were stuck at home, and running was a good excuse to get some fresh air and do something for you and for your mental health and your physical health. And that's how it started for me.
I
For
love
me,
that you started because you wanted to do something for yourself, especially during such a stressful time where we weren't sure what was going to happen next and being locked up with little ones. I think it's absolutely amazing that you did it for yourself. So bravo.
yes, I had made up my mind that I was going to start losing the weight, but coincidentally, my Peloton arrived the Thursday. The next day, everything went in lockdown. So even though I had already mentally decided I was going to get in shape, being locked down gave me all the motivation to do it. I got all the time in the world now. Might as well do it. Why running though? I know you were going outside. Do you mix the running with resistance training?
I started to do some strength training early on, just at my home. I still don't own much of equipment. My main equipment is just my yoga mat. I have some dumbbells and some resistance bands, and you can get a really good workout to just support your running with those simple tools. And I don't need a extra space for it. I normally just put my mat out in my living room. Quite often my child, who is 7 now, joins in, and I think it's really good, because it gives him this goal to work for. he he just moved to the next class, and with that he can start doing the running club. And he said, I want to do a running club. I was so surprised and proud. He want to try, because he's a typical active 7-year-old with many interests. But I think you can give that positive influence when you just show your children that you can just do it whenever it fits you.
They're
I mean,
always watching.
yes, that's
Yes,
what
they
I was going
do.
to say. Yep. I have three daughters, 9, 6, and 3, and they always come in the gym when their mother's in the gym or I'm in the gym. They start trying to do different things like pull ups and lifting weights and picking up the dumbbells. They will do what you do. And so it's a good example you have set for him. You talk about in your bio about the mental aspect. How did running help you mentally during this COVID lockdown, and how does it continue to help you now?
With running, because my favorite distance, I know that you both wouldn't like the same distance, but I like to run slow and long, and that gives me opportunity to process my thoughts, just be outside, be together in nature. I can see wildlife, and it's just somehow you go for that run, and you can untangle your thoughts. And it also teaches you to be being present on the moment. So if you do, for example, hard run, or maybe you just have to do a longer distance, or whatever your goal is, then in order to get it done, you have to focus on that task a hand. And you don't think about what you need to do at home, or what kind of work emails you have to answer. You focus on what you're doing at the moment. And we all have so busy lives. We are constantly connected in social media and everything. I think it's just good option to just tune out and focus on that one thing in hand. Probably you feel the same when you go to gym and do your routines.
Yes, I today I began this past last 10 days I began doing something called rucking, where you walk or hike with weight on you. And so I just bought myself a new rucking backpack and 20 pounds, and I was just listening to an audiobook written by a friend of mine on how exercise and clearing your mind and thinking while you're walking or running helps you with your emotional intelligence. And so it was interesting as I am doing what he recommends, right? Just go out, leave all the social media behind. I was listening to his voice, not his voice, somebody was reading it. But nevertheless, it's powerful. And I live in the forest. So you see deer, you hear animals and other wildlife. And so it is very good to combine the two. How has that continued to serve you now, though, post COVID?
I just carried on. It just never crossed my mind that because I'm able to do other things that I would start doing other things. I do some cross training. I
Mm-hmm.
cycle and I have an indoor bike, I have an outdoor bike, but I my first preference is always to run. It's just whatever suits different people find
Mm-hmm.
different things. Somebody might
Mm-hmm.
love swimming and wouldn't think that they would ever run, and that's absolutely fine. For me, it's just my first choice is running, but I do other things as well to just mix it up, and it also helps if you have any niggles or something running related. So if you do something else like cycling, it just keeps you going, keeps your fitness still up when you're nursing a niggle or something like that.
True or false, your opinion, does it matter how long somebody's been running or how fast they're running in order for them to be considered a runner?
No, I say that a lot in my book, that it doesn't matter if you run the first time, or if you run only maybe 2 times a week or maybe even 1 time a week. You run, you're a runner. And I think you don't have to earn that title, because I was, when I started running, I had a lot of those doubts that I'm not a proper runner. Even when I was running my first ultra, I thought that I'm not a proper runner. But that doesn't matter. You have made the decision, you have laced up your trainers, you have gone out, you are taking action. So I think everybody should be celebrated in that sense.
Let's talk about your book, Just Run, as you brought it up. One, what motivated you to write the book, and what's the target audience of the book?
I started to write the book after I ran my first marathon, because it seemed impossible task for me, because when I started running, I thought that marathon runners are some sort of superheroes, and I definitely don't have any of those qualities. And I trained for it and I ran it. My first marathon was solo, so I didn't have much support. I had only my husband who came to see me, and I was only running 3 times a week, supplementing it with cross training, because that worked best for my body. And I just wanted to share my experience, to show to maybe for somebody who was like me, that it is possible. You can run a marathon training 3 times a week, and even if you think that it's something that you never will be able to do, it actually you do, that it's more achievable than you would think. You just have to put the work in, because you won't be able to run a marathon just you decide and then do it in 2 weeks. You have to put the work in, especially when you're a beginner runner, but it is definitely possible. And so from there on, my book evolved. I went to ultras, I got injured, and I felt that I want to share my mental health struggles in my book as well, that how running has helped, because I carried a lot of shame about the depression that I have been suffering for many years. And writing about it, for me, it was a bit like freeing experience, that
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel that shame anymore. I have openly talked about it on podcasts, and how running helps to, it doesn't cure the depression, but it
Mm-hmm.
helps to manage it better. All sorts of exercises is good, because you get out of your head and you're physically active and you just feel. But when it comes to target audience, I have had people who are very good runners, ultra runners, have read it and they have found some new things for them from there. But the main target audience is beginner run, or somebody who is maybe thought about running, or maybe they have run in the past and they want to just get some more new motivation to get out there. It also has a lot of practical advice for when you want to start out with running, about what care is important and what you
Hmm.
don't actually have to get, and a bit about the running form and all those kind of things that I really didn't know much about when I started, and I would have liked to read about it. So I thought that it's suitable to to add this to the book. So pretty much I wrote it for the me in the past.
Mindful Muscle is a podcast targeted for the beginner. So, in case we do have somebody that is a beginner and they are considering running, do you have any beginner tips that you could share?
What I would say for the beginners, so if it's absolute beginner, I would suggest starting with Couch to 5K. It's a brilliant program. It's not too overwhelming. Also, don't be afraid to repeat weeks if you feel that it's progressing too fast and you just can't catch up. There is no shame in it. And also, just focus on one thing at a time. You don't have to figure all the running form aspects out in one go. Just maybe focus how you hold your head or what you do with your arms, and you don't have to have it all figured out. It could become very overwhelming. Just one step at a time, and you will get there. I would also say that proper warm up and cool down are very important when you start running, because that could keep away a lot of injuries that you could otherwise get from just doing too much too soon.
You mentioned earlier depression. Can you share what was the nature of the depression at the beginning? And you mentioned the running helps, but how are you today?
My depression seems to be never going entirely away, but I manage it well. I'm okay. I'm okay, and running just definitely helps to process my thoughts, and it will give me that feeling of accomplishment as it did in the beginning, similarly.
Yeah.
But also, running has given me so many new friends, and so I have probably a lot bigger community because of running that I can turn to. A perfect example is I am going to do a very big challenge on 21st of this month, and I was afraid that I won't have enough support, and that I will have to do it alone. And but for my surprise, the running community from the running club I'm member of, everybody has been so helpful, and I have people lined up for going to run with me through the night, and something that I was really afraid of.
So you're
So
going to have to tell us what that is. What's the big thing on the 21st?
I'm going to run 100 miles.
Oh my goodness.
Mercy.
That's
Awesome.
amazing.
I know that is. Where does it start? Where does it end? Does it loop back around? Does somebody pick you up at the end of the 100 miles? Tell us
Well,
more.
I will have to shuffle to the car somehow in the end. But it is a kind of loop. So it starts
Hmm.
from the same place as it finishes. So it
Okay.
goes 20 miles out on the canal path, then it does two 30-mile loops at the forest, and then goes back to the starting point. And it's allowed to have somebody with you from 52 miles. And because I wasn't big fan of running through the woods at night time on my
Hmm.
own.
Hmm.
And my friend who previously agreed to come with me wasn't able to do it anymore. And now I have people for coming and filling in that space place. So I'm getting quite excited that
Hmm.
being petrified, getting feeling is going a bit aside, and now the excitement takes over, because I past weeks I felt rather petrified, I would say. It's a
Oh.
very big distance and it's a big challenge, and there is a big chance that you won't finish, but
Hmm.
I will
I'm
try.
I'm petrified for you. That's 100 miles. So no,
But I
all
love
joking
that you
is
have support. I
yes.
absolutely going off of that, Gio and I are both very big fans of community. That's actually how him and
Hmm.
I met each other,
Yeah.
was through a
Hmm.
fitness community. So somebody starting out, maybe they don't have the support system in their family or around them. How did you find your running community?
I live in a small village, and when I was running, then I met up with a lot of people, and everybody said that, have you heard of Geister Running Club? And so eventually I checked it out. It's just 10 minutes from us, and it's very friendly running club, and that's my main running community. But just running around the village, other runners, and somehow you start talking, and there it goes. And I think a lot of it is also in the internet. When I first started running and was training for my first marathon, then I met one of my very good friends from the plant-based endurance athletes group, because she was just flying to do Ironman in which was in Estonia, my previous old town, hometown. And so we started chatting, and now I have a really good friend to just an internet Facebook group connection. So I think all sorts of these kind of groups could be good source of support as well. But I think there are a lot more small running groups and clubs out there than people would think. So I would just suggest to just ask around, that maybe a neighbor or somebody close you runs and goes to some sort of running group. And normally runners are friendly bunch, and they will welcome you, and they will adjust their plans to fit you in, because they generally want more people to enjoy the sport.
Going back to the ultra marathon, it's 100 miles. How do you feel yourself the night before, and how do you feel yourself throughout the race?
I think for the night before, I will go with what I have done for my 40 milers, and I absolutely eat just normal. I don't massively carb load. Maybe I eat some more carb dense meals, but I don't eat them the night before, maybe for the lunchtime, because I feel that otherwise I could feel a bit too heavy. But during the race with ultramarathon, it's you either walk or you slow down, so you eat when you're moving. I always have made that rule for me, that I don't stop for eating. I
Mm-hmm.
move, either I walk or run. And I use mixture of things. I don't use gels or anything like that, because
Mm-hmm.
I use them to start with, but I just don't get along with them very well. So I try to use real food, bananas. Then my go-to is I use baby food fruit pouches, which is
Mm-hmm.
easy thing to
Mm-hmm.
take. And then I use these date bars and things like that. And normally during the ultras at aid stations, they have a variety of foods. One thing I always like during those races is watermelon, because it kind of helps
Yes.
you to replenish your electrolytes, and it's
Mm-hmm.
refreshing. And last ultra in May, I was running from aid station to aid station and thinking that at least I have to do that, those few more miles. I get watermelon, so it was a good motivator. But with those kind of things, you have some staples, and then rest of it you just see what you fancy, because they normally have quite a bit of spread out. The race I'm doing, it's 100% vegan. That's easy as well. I don't have to think about or worry
Yeah,
about
what you eat.
anything. So I will take variety of foods. There is also a drop-off bag that I can access twice during the race, so I will add some more things there. And I have people coming to look how I'm doing as well, so I probably will ask maybe some things from them. But I will just go with the staples that I always use, and then top it up with what I fancy on the day. And
So, how often are the feeding stations when we're talking about 100 miles?
this one is very well stocked. I think the longest caps are like 10 miles, but it's not many of those. Quite often it's less than 10 miles. So it's not the big cap, but you carry your own water and you have your
Mm-hmm.
mandatory kit anyways. So you carry quite a bit of things. In the dark woods, anything could go wrong. So you
Yeah.
have to have things like emergency blanket and things like that, and spare waterproof, and hat and gloves and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. And even if you don't never use them, at least they are there for in case of emergency. And then you
Mm-hmm.
carry at least some food all the time as well, because what I have learned during the ultras, I try to eat something every 30 minutes, even if it's just half of some, like a date bar or something. But it's just little and often, because otherwise it's just too much in one go.
Hmm.
So that's what works for me.
So when we're talking about an ultra marathon like this, 100 miles, what is the time frame that they allow you to finish? Because I know, yeah, there's usually a time frame for it to be
Yeah,
officially counted.
this one is 30 hours.
Mm,
So yeah, different ultras have different time frames. It depends on an elevation and everything like that. But this one is 30 hours.
hmm.
So if
Wow.
you don't finish in 30 hours, then you don't get your medal.
Okay, so here's a $1 million question. And how many hours are you hoping to finish?
Good 100-mile time is considered normally 24 hours. But I'm
Mm,
realistic. It's my first time. My training hasn't been perfect. So I'm aiming around 27 or
mm,
so hours. That
okay.
would be a good time for me.
Okay, so you're planning to finish within the 30 hours then.
Yes, yes, I'm
Yes,
planning to
she wants that
finish.
medal, people. She wants that medal.
I do.
Yeah. So you mentioned that this one is particularly vegan, and so you don't have to think about what you're consuming, but you're plant based, as I see in your biography. What made you go plant based, and how long for the audience have you been plant based?
When I started running, then a few months after that, my husband happened to watch a movie Game Changers,
Mm,
and I was just coming home from the run, and he said that you should watch it too. And so I watched the movie, and I thought that I think they have some good points there that I should try. So I had a gradual change. I didn't change overnight,
mm-hmm.
but within the next month or so, I transitioned. First, I just changed some of the meals around, changed it with the plant-based alternatives, and there it went. And I think it's definitely good choice for me because actually a lot of ultra runners are plant-based
Yes.
because it helps with reduce the inflammation and quicker recovery times. And obviously, what works for me and you, Gio, it doesn't maybe work for everybody, but I made that choice and I'm happy that I did. And I definitely don't lack any protein, which is a main concern
Yeah.
normally for people.
Yes. The $1 million plant-based question always. Where do you get your protein? It's funny you mentioned because I do know just from reading YouTube and reading articles and because I try to learn about more about plant-based. There was this fascinating story that I read years ago of a couple in Australia in their 60s who decided to go plant-based and their friends were teasing them. You know, a friendly way, but it got annoying for them that they decided to show their friends that you can live and thrive on a plant based diet. They ran a marathon every day for a year and felt great.
Oh
Oh,
my
Every
goodness.
brilliant.
day for a year. So three. Now, sometimes they would walk, sometimes they would feel better than others, but they did 26 plus miles every day for a whole year to show their friends that you can exercise and thrive on a plant based diet.
Yeah, that's amazing. But there are many athletes that are actually plant-based, so
Mm
really strong people, and
hmm. Mm hmm.
so it definitely not impossible.
Yes. And look, and I'm not one of those plant based people like, and you seem to be the same kind that, doesn't care if other people meat eat. My co host is a meat eater. But my biggest pet peeve is when a meat eater goes the opposite, like carnivore diet, where they're not balanced, they're not getting their fibers, their vegetables, their, other grains, and they tend to demonize that. Don't demonize it. I don't demonize meat eaters. I don't demonize plant based eaters, although some zealot vegans are crazy.
I agree. I think those people who go into extremes, they just
Mm,
put bad name onto it.
yes.
I feel that everybody does their choices themselves. It's right choice for me. It might not be right
Mm-hmm.
choice for somebody else. And everybody lives what's best for them. So it's not my business.
You inspired your son with him wanting to be involved with a running club. Have you been able to inspire anybody else, or can you share any success stories from your journey?
Yes, there are quite a few people who have read my book and said that I have to dig out those old running shoes and get back out there and it's lovely to hear. I loved getting those kind of messages. It's just I don't know. It makes my heart feel so warm.
You mentioned in your biography here about tips with running with dogs. Here in America, people love their dogs. It's called America's best friend, right? Dogs. Jody and I are cat lovers, for the record. But what are some tips for running with your pooch?
I would say that get the proper canicross kit because it would be better for your dog and better for yourself. When I started running with my dog, then because I have a bit challenging breed, I have a standard schnauzer, and they are known as being very stubborn dogs. And so I reached out for help when we first started, and I just booked a session with the local lady who was doing like introductory canicross sessions. She helped me to get me kitted out, my dog kitted out, because it's the same. Like we go to running shop to get our trainers fitted, or you probably need the same for the gym and things. And I would advise to just get the good kit, even if you don't aren't able to get advice from a real person. Start slow, like you would start any running, because your dog has to build up for that first 5K as well.
Hmm.
Although they could be gone crazy running on the fields, they are not actually ready, because doing canicross is a lot more job for them than just leisurely run on the
Hmm.
fields, because they have to focus and it's that constant pace and that they have to do. But it is very rewarding. My dog loves it. If he
Mm.
sees that I even touch his, he has his own kit bag. So even if he sees that I touch the bag, he gets ever so excited. He loves to go, and he loves to run with me. He is challenging. What I would say that if you have more reactive dog and it is challenging, don't give up.
Mm.
Just go for the shorter distances and try again, and you will figure out what works for your dog. Because I did that, and he was a nightmare to start with.
Hmm.
But it's a good option, because I started just from out of necessity, because I felt that I'm not able to fit in the dog walks and the runs, because it would take just too much time. I don't run with him all the time, but some of my runs I will go replace with canicross session, because then if I'm busy with time, short of time, and I wouldn't be able to do the walk and run separately, then at least I do two in one, and I still get a good session in, and he gets a good experience as well, and it's good for bonding as well with your dog. There are a lot of dogs that are able to run ultra distances as well. My dog is not one of them, but it's
Mm.
definitely possible, because some of the dogs run easily 30, 40 miles, and it works. But obviously, as you would train yourself, you would have to train your dog for it. So the main piece of advice is to get a good kit for your dog and yourself, that your dog wouldn't be able to pull you over, or you wouldn't be able to get yourself injured in the
Hmm.
process.
Say somebody's listening and they're in very similar shoes to when you started, where they want to do it, but they feel like they're not a runner and they also struggle with depression. Could you leave a motivational advice or message to that person?
I would say that just believe that you're enough, you can do it, and just try. You don't have to do it how everybody else are doing. Just do it your way. You own your runs, run your way.
We're look. I'm gonna be cheering you on, and we are going to be connected on Instagram. I'm gonna follow up. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna put myself a note, see how your ultra marathon went on September 21st. So if you're listening, although this may air after she's run it, but we'll be cheering you on for sure. Until next time on the Mindful Muscle podcast, thank you for listening and become a runner if that's what you want.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.